Namaste and good evening to everyone.
Good
A
evening.
warm welcome to all of you for joining us today. Myself, Dr. Vijay. I'm an homeopath and I'll be your moderator. I'm really delighted for this opportunity in this meaningful session on men's well being. It's truly an honor to facilitate today's conversation with two very experienced practitioners and teachers who have touched countless lives through their work. So, as many of us know, International Men's Day is observed every year on the November 19th. The theme for this year's Men's Day was healthy men, healthy families, and healthy communities. Having said that, this theme beautifully reminds us that men's well being is not just a personal matter, it influences entire families, workplace, and societies at large. So we are grateful to Heartfulness for creating the space where we can openly discuss topics that men often hesitate to speak about: emotional health, stress, balance, responsibility, and the inner strength that comes from awareness and compassion. Conversations like these are not just important, they are necessary. So, moving to our speaker's introduction, our first speaker today is Dr. Alok Tandon, a heartfulness practitioner since 1976 and trainer since 2004. He is a highly experienced private dental surgeon with over 40 years of practice in Kashipur, Uttarakhand, near the Jim Corbett Tiger Reserve. He comes from a family deeply rooted in heartfulness training, and beyond his profession, he is an avid sportsman and someone whose lifelong passion has been spirituality and self realization. Dr. Alok has spoken at schools, colleges, and youth forums across India, sharing his vision of a united human brotherhood. We are honored to have him with us. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
And our second speaker today is Mr. Manish Agarwal. He brings with him 25 years of leadership experience across global organizations such as Citibank, Dell, and Deloitte. In his last role, he served as a COO of a listed renewable energy company and earlier as Vice President of Strategy, Research, and Innovation at Deloitte US, India, leading a team of over 300 professionals. He has been featured in leading business media, serves as an advisor for institutions like IIM Udaipur, and today works independently as a financial advisor. More importantly, he is a dedicated practitioner and trainer of Heartfulness meditation for over 30 years. We are grateful to have his presence and perspective today. Welcome you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Vijay.
Yes. So, having introduced our speakers, let's get on to this session on men's well-being. First, Dr. Alok, when we think about this men's well-being, one of the burning issue is how to be no prevent screening, which the men should prioritize at different ages. Various men suffer various illnesses. And how to screen this health issues which men have?
Thank you, Dr. Vijay, for the beautiful introduction. And hello to Mr. Manish Agarwal, my old friend and compatriot. Like to answer your question from two perspectives. One is the medical, and the other one is heartfulness, of which I'm a continuous part since so many years. So, your question has a very interesting answer. And, this answer can vary in different schools of medical lines or thoughts. Like it could be somewhere America or maybe, even Australia or India. But if we answer your question like this, let us divide the human being, the male or a person, in four basic parts. The first part of the life will be what you call the, foundation years. The second part would be the busy years. The third part would be the reflective years. And the final part, which Brother Manish has, is the wisdom years. So this first part, the foundation, this is very important from the medical focus because this is a time when one needs to, and it is from 20 to 30 years. So the foundation years from 20 to 30 requires a regular, blood pressure checkup, And if the person is overweight or he's got a family history, then cholesterol screening. And if lifestyle risks are there, like especially his dietary habits, then definitely a diabetes screening. And it's necessary at this time not to check the human body for any moles or sun exposure. And also, being a dental surgeon, I would say a routine dental and an eye checkup. These are the basic things which are needed from 20 to 30 years, which is the foundation years for every male. From the heartfulness lens, let's look at it. Why do we have this checkup? This is a stage about laying foundations. And what it means that a regular help from your checkups from the doctor, it teaches a person to create or cultivate within himself something called self awareness. He starts becoming aware that, yes, I have a human body I have to look after. So it is, in a way, the first step to inner mastery. You're getting my point? Now, this cultivating of self awareness through regular health monitoring, building habits that are going to support long term well being, and creating a foundation for lifelong health practice. This all starts in the foundation years. When you come on to the second part, that would be what you call the busy years, what Dr. Vijay is going to go through between 30 to 45 years. That's when a human being steps out into the world, starts making a name for himself, and also starts building up finances, which Brother Manish will explain much better, and sort of creating a proper lifestyle for himself and then for his family to come. So these are very busy years. So the fact that there are so many things to be done, apart from just picking up on education on another stream or a type of job, it can be even the defense services, or it can be a government job, or it can be a private business. Either way, they are stress years. So this is the time when from what we need from the medical part is an annual blood checkup, a blood pressure checkup rather, and also, depending on the case, a lipid profile and also a kidney function test. We call it lipid profile and KFT. This is when it's necessary to realize that now my body is functioning over time. So I need to keep these parameters in check so that I can have good longevity and I can be living a safe, comfortable life away from hospitals and doctors. Now, if the body mass index, what we call the BMI, if such a person is, say, 25 or greater than 25, then it's very necessary to have a very good diabetes screening done. HbA1c, which is done every 3 months, is a very good test over here. And if the person is going through stress levels which are very high, then a mental screening is needed over here. And here it is nice to get along with the family and have a family history based screening. So this is from the medical focus. When you go upon it from my perspective as a heartfulness trainer, from the heartfulness lens, here these busy years, because of the stress screening, we have a technique what we call relaxation and a meditation. So these two, they will prevent these chronic stresses to convert into a chronic disease. Okay, and then mental health screening is also important. It is on a rise because of the stress levels, and then again the family screening, family discussions. Now we come on to the third aspect, that is the reflection period. When one person has made a name for himself, is settling down, and that's say 45 to 60 years. So as the age is progressing, certain tests become important, like colon cancer tests. Colon cancer, prostate cancer, these are on the rise. So prostate test would be a prostate specific antigen test, and for colon cancer, you need to even go through a stool examination or a colonoscopy. Okay, and there's no harm even if you don't have to get it done on a routine basis. Then eyes, they take on another role, not just a visual checkup. You need to check up for glaucoma, for cataracts, any visual impairments, and also for vaccines, shingles, which is being spoken about so much, annual flu, and a heart. Now the heart comes into play, so a heart health assessment starts. So this is the medical focus for this stage, that is the reflection period, say around 45 to 60 years. From the heartfulness lens, now what happens? This becomes a period of recalibration and reflection. Here, the cleaning, what we do in heartfulness, it helps a lot. It is extremely valuable over here because it will help remove all the emotional, residue, the heaviness, which is actually contributing significantly to chronic inflammation and tension. So finally, the next stage which comes on is the last, what you call the wisdom years. That is when a person is 60 plus. When they say finally wisdom dawns, which I don't agree, because I feel personally, on a lighter note, once a person gets married, wisdom starts dawning from that day itself. If Brother Manish will agree to that. So here the medical focus for wisdom years, which is the final stage for a human being in his lifespan, is on abdominal aortic aneurysms, because now you have built up your stress level and now something has started going on in the gut brain axis. Okay, so this is good for to be done for people between 65 to 70 years who have a chronic smoking habit. And then also this colon cancers, colorectal screenings, they should be done continuously, and you can stop it around 65, or sorry, 75 years if the doctor says so. And then comes your person who's having losing body weight, having a lot of fractures, then osteoporosis may be there. So you need to have your bone density tests done at this time. And then with age, hearing impairment, so hearing assessment, and then of course vaccines like pneumonia, flu, etc. But now finally, to end my answer, let's go about it from the heartfulness lens. How would we treat this wisdom year 60 plus? This stage calls for something, and that is in a human being lightness, inner steadiness, and harmony. So these things, how they happen is with the meditation that we have, there is clarity. It'll cultivate emotional resilience during aging and also promote graceful aging with equanimity. So here, meditation, what happens? It becomes a gentle companion. It'll support inner peace as we navigate to the final chapter. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for elaborately and wonderfully explaining the answer for the question. I think you covered all the four aspects of age progression as a man and what all challenges one faces, starting from the foundation till the wisdom age. It was beautifully covered. And yes, it's highly reflective that you pointed out that harmony, centeredness, and lightness towards the end of the wisdom age is what men needed. And after speaking about the stress, the emotions which men go through in all these four ages, one question that pops up in my mind is this: why do so many men struggle to express emotions, and how can we create a safer space for that? Mr. Manish, so you want to maybe address it?
Yeah, sure. So now, of course, the urbanization is changing a lot of things, and but some myths. Not too long ago, the protective function of the family was solely in the hands of the supposedly in the hands of only the men, and the men were supposed to be the providers, and providers means not only the financial providers, the resource providers, but also the protection providers to the entire family. And therefore, there was this, you can say, pressure which they built on themselves, that being the protection providers, they cannot possibly be seen to be vulnerable. And the fact of the matter is that the battles in that system that men were fighting were outside the house, which means in the external world, if you can call it a battle, in whatever way it was a battle. Whereas, if you look at the rest of the family, all their battles were within the family, which did not require the same level of protection. So, this assumption of proving that we are not vulnerable and we are very strong, and therefore we are in a position to protect, became in some ways a burden on self expression. And if we go back to some of our masters, what we find is that in the case say of Laraji Maharaj, where even a quilt was short, so he would forego probably his quilt in order to protect the rest of the family, or probably forgo food in order to make sure that somebody else in the family is better covered. Now, that was all done in a spirit of a well-being of the family, in a very voluntary and a loving way. And there is something that is happening now where the uh, the individual is sort of the individual rights are considered more important than the rights of the family. In other words, the individual precedes, or the individual needs and desires and wants uh, need to be prioritized over the family needs, priorities, and this is something which we are right now importing from the West, and it's slowly getting ossified in our urban, largely in our urban setup, especially with the breakdown of our family system and family values. And therefore, what is happening is the need of the individual uh, to prioritize himself over the family is gaining more prominence and more acceptable in some ways. So the second driver of this phenomena is the fact that women, which who were earlier uh, uh, only the protectors of the home front, are now in the workforce in larger numbers. So they are now subjected to the same pressures that men are getting subjected to. And they are also increasingly assuming roles which traditionally have been in the domain of men, which is providing protection, providing financial resources uh, to the family. So it is very natural that in such cases, and this is obviously an evolving situation. It's not that one size fits all and every family is the same, but this is the broad trend in which we are moving, and therefore this sense of individualism is causing more and more people to more and more men in particular to divide that role with the lady of the house increasingly, and that is leading to several conflict situations which are yet not, so to speak, resolved or settled. And then therefore comes uh, and whenever something is not settled, it leads to what we call as entitlement mentality, that I'm entitled to something. And this leads, in some ways, you can say, to a breakdown of the conversation, and therefore not only of the conversation, but the need to express oneself, because the expression is happening a little too loudly, but it's not probably getting heard because both parties are getting subjected to the same pressures. So it's not that only men are going through that pressure, it's also that the women are also going through a very, very similar pressure. Now, if you are asking how do you sort of provide more space, remember the space has been occupied partially by the lady of the house. So, to my mind, there is actually very limited room for expression. It's more about bringing a harmony between harmony and also interdependence uh, between the spouse and between the two spouses, in order to bring smoothness and a sense of fair expectation across the family, which does not in any way uh, hinder the normal family dynamic. But we are in a state of flux as of now, as we speak. That marriage contract is slightly different now compared to what it was 10 to 15 years back. When I say contract, I'm not talking about the contract in the legal sense, but the marriage contract in a social sense now is uh, very, very different.
Thank you, Mr. Manish. I mean, that was beautifully explained. This idea of how the shift from the pressure of always having to be strong, being a man, to the dynamics of work-life balance between men and women in the present day life. And how it has become a silent burden for men in expressing their true feelings. And yeah, your insight reminds me, reminds us that how important it is to create spaces where men don't have to perform strength, can simply be human and think once in a while to connect openly like everyone else. So, with that, I would like to move to our next question for Dr. Alok. So, this question about the lifestyle is one of the major issue that is coming up in day-to-day life when it comes to health. So, how do you think the lifestyle habits like sleep, stress, and diet impact long-term male health?
Sleep, stress, and
Sleep, stress, and diet.
okay. Sleep is something which was unheard of maybe about 25, 30 years back, wherein the father, like Brother Manish spoke, being the head of the family, said, go to sleep, and everybody would just go to sleep, lights off and all. And now, medically, it's becoming a matter of a huge concern. I think, right now, it's on the top of the, you can say, study ladder. And people are really trying to figure out what is the sleep, why is it so important? Nature also has a particular role to play in a human being's life. We have a morning, we have a night. And why this occurs is that there are patterns, when you go into the jungles, you'll find the animals, they have a siesta period, a time to sleep. That's when they don't do anything. They don't kill. They don't try to search for any of their prey or anything. They just sleep. So they rejuvenate themselves. Sleep is the biggest rejuvenator, and medically, it has got a very big role. There are two types of sleep, just to go slightly away from the topic, and it is important to understand this. One is the rapid eye movement sleep, and the other one is non rapid eye movement sleep. Rapid eye movement sleep, if you want to understand it very basically, is when a person has a lot of dreams. When he's disturbed, he's dreaming. So if you are able to watch that person carefully, it may be even a child, the eyelids keep moving when the person is sleeping. So it's called rapid eye movement sleep, which is not acceptable in the medical line. And non-rapid eye movement sleep is the sleep which one searches for in life, wherein he is sleeping totally peacefully, comfortably. Okay, so the impacts of poor sleep, the health impacts are many, and they are like, one is it raises the risk of heart disease. Surprisingly, it will also contribute to diabetes, a risk of diabetes, and then such a person will unknowingly be having a continuous weight gain because he's not sleeping properly. Third thing, which is amazing for you, and of course, when all these are said and done, it will disturb the hormonal balance. So it's a lose lose situation throughout. What is recommended? Let's talk about that. That would be important. Recommended is 7 to 8 hours of sleep. 7 to 8 hours of sleep per night is very important. And there should be something called a consistent sleep wake rhythm, which means that we should try to create right from the very outset, the formative years, the 20 to 30 years, to create a biological clock within, wherein that particular time is only for sleep. From the heartfulness lens or the heartfulness perspective, let us see what happens. Why is the sleep disturbed? Is because the mind is not calm. Definitely. If I am disturbed, how can I sleep well? Take, for example, I have a fight with the spouse, like Brother Manish mentioned. So, such people, they're going to be disrupted. There's disharmony in the whole house. No one is sleeping well. Supposedly, the lights are out, someone is snoring, but it's an exhausting sleep. It's not a rejuvenating sleep. So, this mind calmness is very important. It leads naturally to the quality of good sleep. Okay. And then for heartfulness sleep practice, we incorporate meditation before bedtime. What happens? It does something wonderful. It helps shift the entire nervous system into a restorative mode. Imagine the neurons firing this, that, other, so many things to do, so many people to speak about, what have you. Boss says this, I replied like this, I wish I had not done this, I wish I had done this. Like we are all the time consistently fighting with each other and mostly with ourselves. This is one time wherein a meditation at night for any human being will help the nervous system to just shift gently into a restorative mode. It'll start coming back to normalcy. What we call medically that milieu interior is maintained. And also, there'll be a peaceful transition from daily activity to deep rest. So, this I think answers your query about sleep. Coming to stress management for long term wellness. I remember my founder president of the system, Heartfulness, Babuji Maharaj, when he was asked, what is stress? He gave a very beautiful answer. He said, misdirected thought. And I have spoken with even psychiatrists, and I asked them, and this is a wonderful answer because actually it's all about misdirected thinking, making a mountain out of a molehill, creating a volcano where there was no eruption at all. Okay, so stress, it can create only negative things. Number one, it will disrupt your immunity. And once your immunity is disrupted, already COVID has done that, you're going down the drain faster. It will increase something called cortisol levels. Cortisol is a hormone which is very necessary for the human body. And it involves a lot of systems. But the moment this cortisol is raised, it can create havoc for the individual. So you need to have a very basic baseline of this cortisol, and this all increases with stress. So, got to be very careful about this. It will also lower testosterone, and it will definitely accelerate your aging. So, from the heartfulness perspective, or the heartfulness approach, or the heartfulness lens, stress we believe isn't removed by force. It dissolves only when the inner state will shift. So when there's a shifting of your inner state, then you'll find that the stress level starts decreasing. And the idea is very simple that you just have your attention on something higher as we do in meditation. Also, when we do the evening cleaning, the interesting thing is that it'll remove accumulated impressions, reduce the emotional heaviness, and daily meditation, it cultivates equanimity and emotional strength. And then finally, the mind body practices, they will restore your natural balance. Rushing up with the third part, the nutrition or the diet part. So it should be mindful, the nutrition. And that means no to processed foods, no to high sugar free beverages. They are very dangerous. In any way, however much you speak about them, it's still too less. You've got to be very careful. This topic has to be addressed in the family and in communities again and again. So you need whole food diet. You need something to support your hormonal balance, cardiovascular stability, and also longevity. And at the same time, what we prefer is fresh fruits and vegetables, lean protein diet. That's important. From heartfulness, to wind up this question in a hurry, eat mindfully, eat with gratitude, eat with moderation. Your mind will remain light, it'll remain conscious. So you have a heart centered approach to food. And this will, bring about something called natural self control instead of a forced discipline. And mindful eating is also going to support hormonal balance and metabolic health. So, this in a nutshell is an answer to your question.
Thank you, Dr. Alok. I mean, that was a very holistic explanation from the scientific importance of sleep, deep and REM sleep, and also the heartfulness understanding, and how stress and diet can impact in men's life. So, having spoken
I would
about,
like to add to this.
yeah, yes, sure, sir.
So, So there are two more lifestyle habits that we can possibly consider to improve uh, our daily living in terms of overall well-being. One is the practice of pranayam has been found to be very, very effective in protecting us against disease and also reducing the intensity of existing diseases, especially lifestyle diseases. Uh, so, in my experience, 20 years ago, I have a family history of uh, heart diseases, and 20 years ago, I was diagnosed with blood pressure. That's the time, and I realized that if I have blood pressure, I am supposed to be on medication almost all my life for this. So that's the time when I explored pranayam and I started actually practicing it. And let me share with you that for 20 years, I never had uh, uh, increase in blood pressure to levels which required medication. And when I studied this entire process of pranayam, it's very interesting. It is the basis of that is very, very interesting and spiritual. So essentially, there is a force in nature which we call pran, which invigorates an inanimate object with life. As we are aging, this pranic force in our system actually reduces in its vitality. Bad food, when I say bad food, essentially it means excess quantities of sugar, salt, processed foods, uh, maida. I don't know what you call maida in English, and lack of fresh fruits, vegetables, whatever constitutes a non pranic diet, which means these foods actually reduce pran in our body. And nourishing foods like fresh fruits, fresh raw vegetables, and as prescribed within the Ayurvedic system of medicine, they nourish our pran much better. So, in other words, pranayam, if done without regard to the quality of the food that we are taking, reduces the impact of that significantly. Alcohol, smoking, even non-veg food, it reduces the vitality of the pran within our system. And millions of people have benefited from the fact that by doing pranayam regularly, they have been able to manage, in some cases, avoid, and in some cases, treat very, very complicated diseases which are not even treatable today in the modern medical system. So that's one part which I think I hope a lot of our viewers will uh, consider when they are sort of thinking about their lifestyle.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with you. I agree with you. It's a wonderful thing that you added light to this. Thank you.
Indeed, yeah. Thank you for adding that aspect of pranayama, Mr. Manish. I mean, it's really eye-opening to see how pranayama can balance and bring about holistic well-being. This something very much needed for all of us men to start into practice. So, having said that, I would want to move from the physical aspect to the emotional aspect because that is also as important as the physical well-being. So this question, Brother Manish, it's for you. What practical tools can help men develop emotional resilience without feeling judged?
Yeah. So remember the large part of the emotional reaction comes from a combination of what I call as the mind-heart complex, and these are driven uh, a lot by our own past thinking and action, which we call in the heartfulness system of meditation, which we call as the samskaric pattern. So our reactions, in other words, are determined largely by our past thoughts and actions, that's a rough correlation we can. Our system of knowledge tells us that there's a correlation between our past thoughts and actions and how we react to things, emotionally or otherwise. Now, therefore, the solution to that reaction cannot come from a very prescriptive method. Say, for example, we all know that supposing, I'll give you an example from the Mahabharata. When Krishna was explaining to Duryodhan what is right and what is wrong, and what is dharma and what is not dharma, Duryodhan very clearly told him, I know what is dharma. The problem is I cannot do it. All right. So, in a similar way, we cannot manage our emotional this thing through a very prescriptive route. And we have to go to the root of what what it will entail to manage our emotional reactions, which is to the removal of these or the residue of these past thoughts and actions. Now, to the best of my knowledge, the most effective tool uh, to to get rid of these past thoughts and to get rid of the effects of these past thoughts and actions and respond in a way which is determined by the heart and not necessarily by the mind and this residue. Um Personally, I have been practicing a system of meditation, which we now, of course, call heartfulness, and that removes this residue. And once that residue is removed, it gives us the capability to react differently. It does not mean we will always react differently, because that's also a matter of habit, but it gives us the ability to make a choice. And once, as part of our practice, we start making different choices, because now we have the capability. Earlier, we probably did not have the capability. Our emotional resilience automatically goes up, because those decisions are being determined at a level which is different from the fixed pattern that we were already used to.
Okay, thank you for throwing light upon that. So, I mean, that is a highly important aspect to work on, especially for men, to become emotionally resilient. And I hope this practice of heartfulness, which you have mentioned, many of us do take it up and try it out to get an experience of how it can help us become more resilient emotionally. And Dr. Alok, I want to ask you this question about the practice. Like, what simple daily practices you think would support inner balance and clarity? Like Brother Manish was mentioning about heartfulness. So, what's your say on it?
Yeah, I'm very happy with Brother Manish sort of giving us an opening into this aspect. And I wholeheartedly support him and like to add on to it further with the permission of Brother Manish. Heartfulness is a stream of practices, right from morning to night, which are very helpful for every human being. Every human being, actually, even male or female. And it's very important today. We start off with a relaxation, a daily relaxation for about 2 to 3 minutes. It will relieve your muscular and mental tensions, actually. And you'll find that, it is helping your nervous system settle. Only the relaxation. When you go on to meditation, what happens? It'll train your mind to return to calmness, like Brother Manish was mentioning. It'll sharpen clarity. And at the same time, emotional steadiness starts coming in with this meditation. Now, it happens not overnight. We have to be prepared for that and keep watchful about it. I'll come to that later. Next comes this cleaning, what we do in the evening, heartfulness cleaning. Here, it'll lighten the mind, like I mentioned earlier, of accumulated trash, heaviness. It can be anything. It can be something very good. Someone told me I've got an ego spike and I'm retaining it all the time. It's trash, actually. So, this heaviness is help to be removed by this cleaning. And then what happens? The mind is lightened from stress and interactions which have happened in your daily activities, maybe the office, elsewhere, even at home. Also, something which I suggest and which I find very beneficial, because my work is also involving a lot of stress. If it is not mine, it's my patients or it is my staff. I go into this brief pause practices. This brief pause, which can range from, say, 60 minutes to 90 seconds. Like I'm reminded of one very beautiful quotation which I had when I was a hostelite. One moment of patience can ward off great disaster. So imagine that you're about to burst at your staff because they have done something literally wrong, which should not be done. And instead of just screaming at them and creating a sort of a very heavy atmosphere in your workplace, just take a pause, center yourself, 60 seconds, 90 seconds. And I call it the U turn. Even in the case of an anger, you have a U turn for 60 to 90 seconds and just tell yourself, okay, I'll get angry with this guy 24 hours later. So what happens, the energy which is coming out of your system in anger, it goes back. Why lose something which is yours unnecessarily? The person is not worth it. No one is. Even the wife, I can say it because she's in the adjacent room. So next thing, along with these brief pauses is something called journaling. And that I find very amazing because I remember when I meet these children, I've found especially little girls with their dainty diaries, very beautiful pink Barbie type diaries, and they're keeping on scribbling something or the other. And I would try to see, what I've written, and they would hide it. No, uncle, this is mine. And I would wonder why this journaling is so helpful. Actually, it's an introspection. These children are working on themselves. They're writing things which help them. They're writing that, today I had a fight with Kathy. Today Jack was very rude. And, they're taking it out of the system. So actually, it's a very beautiful thing which, as a human being at any age, even in the wisdom years, one can start a journaling. This is a reflection procedure. The next thing comes is a daily movement. As a doctor, it's very important to walk, say, 20 to 30 minutes, even if you have like gone into your wisdom years. A brief walk in the morning, 20 to 30 minutes, brief walk after dinner, 20 to 30 minutes. It calms you. Walking is so wonderful that, even if you're stressed out, you just say, I'm just, where are you going? Finish the conversation. Okay, I'll just come back. Take a 20-minute walk and, try to think what, your spouse said, whether she blasted you, what was there? Was there something which, I should correct in myself? You're reflecting. And that reflecting, you're pausing and you come back a totally different person. And she says, what happened? So you believe in one, yeah, and I'm very grateful that you corrected me. With that gratitude coming in, you're actually removing an impurity, which is also like Brother Manish mentioned about removing. So this is another technique wherein you be grateful for what is happening. So that's a wonderful technique. And then, of course, your consistent sleep ritual. That's very important. Light dinner. And now this is something which at least I think Dr. Vijay is not going to like. It is always preferred to have at least the last 30 to 45 minutes before going to sleep, it should be totally screen free, which means even no mobile phones. That's also screen. So I see you guys on Netflix, even on your mobile phones. I could never understand it. Manish Bhai, I can't enjoy a movie on an Android or an iOS. So this moment, of 30 to 45 minutes screen time, if you can stop and then try to sleep, see the difference. So what I've told you about is basically an integrated approach. It is, like brother mentioned, it is a body, mind, and heart approach.
Beautifully said. So, I mean, I too vouch for a few of those things, especially having tried out journaling, which was something which I remember I used to do in my childhood days too. And somewhere in my life, I have lost touch. I think it's a reminder for me to bring it back into process. Thank you for mentioning that. And yes, we, especially the youth nowadays, we really need to focus on our screen time. Thank you for that too. And now, having heard of all these practices which Dr. Alok has mentioned, and there is this aspect of compassion when it comes to emotional resilience. Since my brother Manish, you spoke about the emotional resilience, I want to ask you this question about how can men nowadays, especially, cultivate this compassion for themselves, not just responsibility for others. You're muted, so I think you're.
The responsibility is not for just others, that they have a responsibility towards themselves as well. So I wouldn't even consider this as compassion. I would consider this as more of an understanding. And at the level of understanding, my submission is that all human beings operate at three levels, which is one is physical, which is both perceptible and visible. The other is mental. At the mental plane, it is perceptible but not necessarily visible in the way that the physical plane is, our physical bodies and physical existences. And third is the spiritual level, which is neither physically visible nor is it perceptible to an untrained person. The interesting part is that in our Indian system of knowledge, there was a very clear recognition of these three planes. And not only the recognition, but also the fact that physical, mental, and spiritual wellness totally in totality constitutes overall wellness. It's not absence of disease. So in the modern medical system, absence of disease is considered health. Whereas in the Indian integrated approach, it was not absence of disease, but a complete wellness at physical, mental, and spiritual level, which means a level which is spiritual, which is imperceptible. If there is lack of wellness there, because it is interdependent on mental and physical, you will see the ill effects of that percolating down there and vice versa. So, the understanding as human beings we have to develop is that while there are tools we seek and we operate with, as far as the physical and in some cases mental levels are concerned, we completely ignore the spiritual level because we are not aware of it. And it is aware, we are aware of it or the impact only when we are trained for it. So while it is not visible, we cannot ignore it, and therefore, uh, in this sense, it's really not compassion, but it's the responsibility of individuals to explore this spiritual level and act on it in such a way that it positively reinforces the wellness at the mental and physical level, some of which we have already talked about. For example, uh, we know that there is something called law of karma, right? It operates at a spiritual level. It does not operate at a, I mean, the physical effects of that law of karma comes in a highly delayed way. So therefore, uh, developing a comprehensive understanding of the spiritual level, which so far has been, you can say, outside the scope of study in Western thought and therefore in our thought, uh, and which we are proud inheritors of that particular tradition, uh, we need to build on that in order to uh, develop comprehensive wellness. Otherwise, the it's like leaving out one pillar and hoping that we will achieve wellness through only through the physical and the mental planes. And there are several methods available to explore the spiritual level. Of course, every person has to choose uh, on their method. In my personal case, I have found heartfulness to be very, very effective.
Wonderful.
Um, Really eye-opening again for me. I mean, we always give more importance about the physical rather the also the emotional part, but hardly we think about the spirit and how it can impact the other two layers, right? So that's a very out of the box explanation to that question, which I never expected. Thank you, sir, for mentioning such an new idea about it. And also, now I want to pose this question to both of you in general. So, having spoken about all these three pillars and various methods which we can incorporate in our life in order to maintain wellness. So, now the present day scenario, when we think about all these practical aspect, is workplace and family, right? So, how can workplaces and families be more supportive of men's mental and emotional health? So this common support, how can it form? So anyone of you want to go first?
Yeah. Can I start, Manish bhai?
Please go ahead.
Understand one thing, Dr. Vijay, that growth will always happen only when the heart is allowed space to express itself. Otherwise, it is stymied or stultified. So we need to create this space. Manish Bhai has touched upon it. So need to create space for expression, either in the workplace or even in the families. So for creating the space, there are certain things which can be done. And that is number one, authentic listening. Authentic listening is a very important aspect of heartfulness also. And it makes a lot of sense. That is when, you hear the person out without creating any sort of chaos, and your heart actually tunes to that person's level. It's what we call heartful communication. Along with this, we have to replace that toughen up culture, which already Manish Bhai has spoken about. That those days are gone. So we can promote sustainable conditions like work patterns instead of just a constant push and achievement which we are running after. And also, we need to understand these silent struggles which go on with men. Men are not able to verbalize being what they are, especially in the human population in India. And we have to again support journaling so that one can go on to reflective practices, quiet morning routines, evening cleaning in heartfulness, and also respect unique paths. And that is that acknowledge that each and every family member is having his own inner journey to run. So that would be my first take for this. Other things would be that, like we mentioned about cleaning, it helps remove your impressions, cultivating inner likeness. So the sessions like relaxation, simple meditation, evening cleaning, reflective writing, mindful movement, and gratitude practice, they're very nice. They will help out. In the family, I would like to end by just saying that one has to recognize the hidden stress. That is very important. You have to understand, and that is not that because I am a male, that men often hide stress. And why they do it? To protect and support the family. So they are like, sort of building up something very deep inside which can burst any moment. And that can be very, very disruptive and very dangerous also, medically also. Shift the communication. One should learn to move from, you should or to how can we support you? So we can sit down with the family and ask them, no, let's try to do this for some time. Also normalize the vulnerability, create space for men to share their fears, uncertainties. So be understanding. Give them a patient ear like the man has been doing all the years for his woman. And in the workplace, a similar scenario will occur is like compassionate goal setting, understand, allow the mental health flexibility amongst your workers, acknowledge the efforts. So when men they feel understood rather than judged, they will naturally open up. And once they open up, they can connect more deeply with those around them. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Pratham, Manish, you want to add something to
Yeah,
what?
definitely. Uh, so understand there is no responsibility, at least on the workplace part. The workplace is unlikely to change, or it's unreasonable to expect that the workplace will change. And one understanding of stress we have to develop is that stress is nothing but a reaction of ours to an external event. It is never caused by an external event. It is caused by our reaction to an external event. And those reactions cannot, it is very difficult to change those reactions unless and until we learn to operate at a spiritual level.
Yes.
All right. So it's like saying be good, it doesn't matter because it won't change anything. But if we change the software which is causing us to be other than good, quote unquote good in whatever that way that means, then possibly there is a possibility that our reaction will change. And so that's one thing we have to imbibe, which is realize that the external environment may or may not be favorable in the way that because you are placing a demand on somebody else, it may or may not fructify. So therefore, the the onus uh, of our wellness and well-being is not in some ways on others, but on ourselves, and that comes from our own reactions, and that's where the entire spiritual training comes.
Yes. If I may just add one or two points, you know that old saying from William Shakespeare: "Try to change the universe and you achieve nothing. Change yourself and you can change the universe." It is so apt with what Mr. Manisha just mentioned. So we really have to work at ourselves, you know, instead of finding faults in others. You know, I'll give you a small example. You know, this was told to me by one of my mentors many years back. She says, "Alok, suppose you are in a very cold area and a child comes to you begging and asks for some money, and you look at him, small child, he doesn't even have slippers on his feet, and he's wearing all, you know, torn things, and it's biting cold, like you are in your car and, you know, with the heater on and everything. So you just take out some, say maybe 500 or 200 rupees and give it to the child. What do you feel?" So I was amazed when she said, what do you feel?" I said, "I'll feel nice. I feel happy." She said, "No, you should feel gratitude." I said, "How's that?" She says that this child came in front of you. You gave it money. And by giving it money, that child was so happy. You had so much love in your heart. It's because of the child that this love came in your heart. So you should have gratitude to that child, towards that child. And that's what this, I think, whole webinar is about. That we need to change our mindset. And that can happen again, like Brother Manish mentioned, the heart mind organ. We have to work on the heart, using the mind. And I think that is what heartfulness is talking about.
So my last comment on this is that don't try to change the world, quote unquote, the world. Try to change, quote unquote, your world.
Yeah, well, that's so beautiful.
Um, Thank you, sir, and thank you, Mr. Manish. I mean, both of you have given so many points in which I actually started feeling gratitude for being given this opportunity to be a moderator for the session. And there are so many points which I think we can only grasp when we re-listen to this recording multiple times at least. Starting from the theoretical points wherein various health issues, different stages of health in a men, and the current day scenario which men face, and how they find difficult to express emotional resilience, and also the practical aspects. Each and every cornerstone of this, I think this huge wall of men's health has been perfectly placed and answered by both of you. And I'm really humble and gratitude rather I feel right now for listening to you both on this topic. And this one quote kept coming to me, especially when you both answered the last question. It's called. It goes this way. I think it's called when you change the way you look at things, things you look at change. And I hope it did really change my perception towards men's well-being. And I hope the same audience too will feel when they listen to this webinar. And yep, thanks a lot for being a part of this webinar and graciously accepting our invite to speak about this very important yet deep topic. Thank you, sir, and thank you, Mr. Manish.
Thank you so much. Thank you for giving us this opportunity. It was a pleasure.
Uh,